Hello, welcome to my online studio. Here are some exercises that can really be beneficial if you're suffering from lower back pain. There's a few rules of engagement here. Always be responsible for your own body. If at any point during any of these exercises you feel pain or discomfort, then please pull back from what you're doing. As this is a virtual class, it's really important for everyone doing this to be aware of how they're moving. If you wish to stop, then please do. Please don't feel like you need to push yourself any further than you need to. What would be really helpful is to have a thinnish cushion, which we will use to place under the head at various points in the class, and a mat and yourself, and that's it. Okay, so if you'd like to take a lie down, come down onto the mat and bend your knees and bring your feet flat on the mat. Here it's helpful to use a cushion. If your neck is feeling or your head is feeling a little bit lower than the body, you can place your head onto a cushion here. You may want to try putting a cushion underneath your head first, and then taking it away and seeing which one you prefer. So I'd invite you to close your eyes and just start to breathe it through the nose and breathe out through the mouth. Deep breaths in, and just sense the breath coming down through the body into the rib cage, and then breathe out. And then breathing in. As you're breathing in this time, imagine that your rib cage is widening and then softening as you breathe out. And again, breathing in, widening the rib cage, sending the breath a little bit further down the body, spiraling down the spine, and then breathing back out. And again, breathing into the body, sending it beyond the rib cage down into your pelvis, spiraling down the spine, and then breathing out again. So at all times during this set of exercises, breathe as you will. Sometimes I do direct breath, sometimes I don't, but it's really important that you go with the breath that you feel is appropriate for you. Okay, to start off with, just let your hands, your arms lay a little bit out away from your body, keeping your eyes closed, and then I want you to send your attention all the way down the body. So from the head, feel how it's connected to the mat or the cushion, and then also how your shoulders are connected into the mat. Feel how your arms are spiraling outwards, your palms up, your palms down, which is the most comfortable for you. Going down the rib cage and noticing how the rib cage is connected to the mat, and how the lumbar spine, the lower spine, is connected to the mat, and if there's a little dip, which is natural, you don't need to press your lower back into the mat at any point here. And then notice how your pelvis, your hips are connected into the mat, and then your feet. Legs are a hip width distance apart, thigh bones coming out directly out of your hip bones, and your feet are connected into the mat. And just notice if there's a tendency to rock onto the outsides of the feet or the insides of the feet, or whether your toes are lifted. And just soften the feet. So I would want you to feel like they're just a molting pile of wax, of chocolate, whatever kind of melty thing that you want to imagine. Okay, so we're coming back up to the head, and what I'd like you to do, still keeping your eyes closed, is press your head gently into the mat. It's as if you wanted to give yourself some tactile references, if someone's got their fingers on their forehead and your chin, and just gently pressing back into the mat. And then soften that connection. And then pressing the head a little bit more deeply, and coming back. There's no tension in the neck here. It's just pressing back, just connecting the head into the mat. Notice if there's any subtle changes in your spine when you do this. And now I'd like you to open your eyes up and keeping a connection to the mat, which is not when the connection is free, but not as hard as when you're pressing your skull back, just sort of midway. And then I want you to turn your eyes towards your right, the wall on the right. So you come towards your right ear as you turn your head. And then bringing the eye gaze over the ceiling towards the left. Always maintaining that connection on the skull and on the side of the skull towards the ear. You may find that there's a bit of tension in the opposite shoulder going up the neck. This is fine. Just if it becomes, if it's quite tough, then back off. And then rolling back again. We're going to do this one more time. And then one more time to the right. Gently here, really explore and allow the back of the head to really enjoy that connection with the floor, because it's not often it has this active connection with anything, because it's always on top of the head, in the air often. And then come with the eye gaze to the ceiling. Okay, now let's place our attention down to the pelvis. You may want to put your hands on your hips here and just really connect in with your pelvis area and just notice that it's there. And now let's imagine that you've got a clock like Big Ben on your hips, so between your navel and your pubic bone. Top of it, the navel is 12 and the pubic bone is 6. And let's imagine that you've got a marble in the middle. And I want you to gently tip your pelvis down towards your pubic bone as if the marble is going to fall through the center of your legs onto the floor. And then rolling that marble back, so rolling the pelvis back to 12 towards the navel, so as though the marble is going to come into the navel. And then sending this way. So be mindful with lower back issues that this is quite close to your lower back. So be really, really gentle here. Even if it's the most smallest of movements, it's totally fine. Just rolling back and forth, connecting with the pelvis on the mat as we go. And again, rolling the marble towards, through the thighs, and then rolling the marble towards the navel. And then come to the middle, come to a neutral point. Now let's place our attention into our feet. So connect your feet into the mat. And I want you to just press the feet down into the mat. Okay, and now I want you to send your heels towards your toes. So the feet stay where they are, but the heels just sense as though they're just sending them towards their toes. And notice what happens with your pelvis. And then soften down. And now I want you to pull, as if you're pulling your heels towards your pelvis. And notice what happens with your back here. And again, sending the heels away. So really maintaining that footprint that you've created with your feet in the mat. And then bringing the heels towards your bum. So at all points your feet are stationary. It's just a connection movement here. And again, one more time. So you'll notice with the movement of the feet that the pelvis is actually moving in the way that you've just moved it. Okay, Now what I want you to do is I want you to press into the big toe on the right foot. And just allow the pelvis to shift as it is, as it wants to. And again, pressing the left toe into the mat here. And notice what happens, that the pelvis wants to lift. And press the right toe in. Notice that the right pelvis wants to lift. Also notice that the right thigh bone wants to move towards the wall in front of you, out of the pelvis. Soften down. And again, pressing the left toe in. Left hip side rises, thigh bone goes towards the wall in front. And this is what we call 3 and 9 on the clock. You can put your hands on the knobbly bits of your pelvis and you can really sense that tipping as we press on the right, roll on the back and press on the left. Be really curious here, be really gentle as well. Especially if you've not done this before, it's really important just to have a sense. So, you know, if you can't feel your pelvis, so that's totally fine, it's totally normal. But doing things like this will actually give your body a connection to your pelvis, which actually is such an important part of our body. So the motion that we're making now with the right and left on the toes, this is actually the movement that we do with walking. It's allowing the two hemispheres of the pelvis to start rotating. Okay, now let's come back to neutral. And I want to go back to the double feet. So pressing the feet down into the mat and then sending your heels towards the wall, maintaining in the imprint. Notice that the pelvis rises. Lengthen the thigh bones out of the pelvis as the pelvis rises. And as you can see on screen, I'm stroking my thigh bones with my hands to encourage them to move out of the pelvis. So imagine you're creating a space. So I've got your knees and I'm purling your knees towards me. I'm standing on your foot side. And then softening the spine down. And then again, sending the feet, so really pressing the heels towards the wall in front, lengthening the thigh bones out. If you've got a cushion, please take that away from underneath your head. And then calming down. And then this time we're going to press in and we're going to stay up here. Now what I want you to do is I want you to raise your right heel and then place it down. And I want you to raise your left heel and press it down. Raise your right heel and then your left. And then raise your right heel and then your left. Now raise both of the heels together and soften down. Raising both of the heels together and soften down. Raising both of the heels together and soften down. Now we're going to raise the toes. So raise the toes to the heels and down. Raise the toes up and down. So you're rolling onto the backs of the heels now. Flexing the foot really deeply. And then we're going to do one heel, one toe up, other toes up. So we're going to do alternate toes, really flexing the feet and also remembering to send those thigh bones continually to the wall in front. Okay, 3 more, 2, 3, and then bring both the feet down and then soften the spine down. Okay, now bringing your arms out nice and wide so they come to a T, and then I want you to bring your knees together and your thighs together and your inner seams of your feet together. it might be easy if you turn your palms up to the ceiling at this point. And then I want you to just start to rock to side on your pelvis. If you wish to put your head underneath on top of the cushion again, please reach for the cushion. And let's just rock from side to side on the pelvis. Now, I'm going to stay in the middle, but I'm going to ask you to rock your knees over to the left side. Start to peel both soles of the feet off, so the inner seams of the soles are still glued to each other. So you start to show the soles of your feet to the right side. Eye gaze is at the ceiling. And then coming down. You do not need to go right down to the side right now. So if you're looking at the screen, only rock over, only, sort of halfway between the knees and the floor. Halfway between 90 degrees and the floor, so that 45 degrees. And just get yourself and your spine used to doing this. And then again, over to the right side. Now what I want you to do is, if you have a cushion, then you can place it on the side where your knees are going to come down. So I want you to start eking over to see how far your spine will allow you to spiral down. If it's only halfway like this, then come back, get some cushions and do it so you can prop yourself up. So you're lying, your knees are actually lying on a cushioned space rather than hanging in the air. Because if they're hanging in the air, then it actually ends up creating tension. Good to have them on both sides here. And then turn the head to the opposite way. If your shoulder is open, if your shoulder is rising, your opposite shoulder to knee is starting to rise, and that means you also need to bring your knees up a tad. Now I'd like you to do some tactile cueing for yourself, and I want you to breathe into the rib cage, into the side of the rib cage, and then I want you to take your right hand on the right hand of the rib cage, and I want you to stroke the side of your rib cage. So you're encouraging it to come down first, then the pelvis moves, then the knees come over, so you come to the middle. Switch the cushions around if you don't have any on the other side. Then start to roll the knees over, the pelvis comes, the spine spirals, the arms open, and the head goes to the left side. Notice that I've got my soles of my feet now facing the left side. And then take the breath into the left side of the rib cage, and then stroke down the rib cage, encouraging the ribs to start the spiraling movement as the pelvis comes up and the knees come last. And again, repeat that on each side twice, but really gently, really gently, just opening up that all of the muscle tissue and the fascial connections and the vertebra. You may find it in the hips as well. And then breathing into the rib cage, stroking the rib cage down, unspiraling your spine as your knees come over, sliding the knees to the right side, head goes to the left. Breathing into the rib cage, stroking down the rib cage. And one more time, coming over to the left, over to the right. Now stay here, sweep your arms around and place them underneath your head in a cradle. Interlink the fingers on the back of your head. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to turn your head to your right side and then bring your elbow up, so as if you had felt tip pen on your elbow, and you're painting a semicircle over the ceiling towards the left side. You end up in a fetal position. Then I want you to open up that right side eye gaze follows the movement to the right side. Then you come down with the rib cage, pelvis, heels. Eye gaze goes over to the left, and then left elbow brings the head round into fetal position. And again, remember to place your cushion underneath the knees if you need to. Bringing the opening up the left elbow here. Eye gaze follows. Rib cage comes down, then pelvis, then knees as they come over. Eye gaze goes to the right, right elbow comes over, gathering the head. And then one more time, opening up to the right side, unravelling the rib cage unspirals, pelvis, knee, eye gaze goes to the left, opens into fetal position. Now lengthen both of your arms out here, and then just open up your left arm, so it's long now, and just let the shoulders open and the arms open wide, and then bring the rib cage down, the pelvis down, and the knees come open to the left side. Eye gaze goes to the right, and you bring the arm up so your arms are now 90 degrees. So your left arm out is long. Again, take a cushion, place it under your head here. You want to feel comfortable. The arm is long, so left arm is long, and then open up the right arm, so your right angles to the ceiling. Now, let gravity do its thing. Imagine that you've got, your arm bones are going into your shoulder blade. Just let the arm just go, really sink into the shoulder blade here. And then I want you to lengthen the arm out of the shoulder socket, and then soften it back in. Just let gravity do its job here. Then lengthen the arm out of the shoulder, and coming in. And then one more time. And then come midway. Now I just want you to start doing very little circles. So imagine that you've got your arm bone in your shoulder girdle, and the movement is coming from here. So the movement is coming from the shoulder, the armpit, rather than the hand. The hand is moving because the upper arm is moving. Okay, so slowly but surely start to spiral the arm out a little bit wider, and be curious with how your arm is feeling in your shoulder girdle. And then start to make the arm spiral wider. And just, you might notice at one point your rib cage might want to get involved here. So if that's the case, then come back a little bit, because we don't want to get the rib cage just getting too involved just yet. So we're going really wide with the arms. Now bring your arm so as if it's coming in a normal opening up, so it's just grazing your ear. And now I want you to open the arm out as your rib cage rotates and your eye gaze follows your hand. And then the palm turns, so as it grazes your hip bones, the palm is facing the floor. And then eye gaze follows the hand as it goes over your head. Your palm faces the ceiling and then spirals round, so by the time it gets to your shoulder, it's facing the floor. Okay, and then hand comes around again as it comes to your eye gaze. Arm starts to spiral, faces the ceiling, then it comes out into the T, palm comes down to the floor again. So we're just spiraling the arm, the palm is facing the ceiling and then comes down. You may get some nice clicks. And let's reverse that, but on the same plane. So So we want to sweep over the hips, allow the arm to spiral as the palm goes up as it reaches the shoulder blade, and then the arm the palm faces the floor as it goes past. Open out wide. The rib cage starts to open here. Again, if this is feeling too much for your spine right now, then just make the arm circles smaller. Make the rib movement smaller. Okay. And calming. Slowly start to bring the arm up. So it's further away from your body, but now gravity is doing the upright spiraling work. You may find that this side is this rotation circle is a little bit alien to the body. I know this one is for me. It may have felt slightly easier when you were doing the other way, but that's because that's the normal patterning way that you're used to. Okay, and then slowly just get the arms to just come into a natural stop. Okay, now bring the arm down to the left-hand side. Just stroke your inner side of the arm, open out the rib cage, turn the rib cage onto the mat, unravels the hips, knees come over, and left arm follows, right eye gaze goes onto the right arm. I'm just going to switch around so you can see me. Okay, so bringing the arm up to 90 degrees. So your right hand is now out on the floor and left arm is up into the ceiling. Sending the left arm up towards the ceiling and then let gravity allow it into the shoulder girdle. And then a little bit up and coming down. You're possibly wondering why we're doing arm movements when we've got lower back pain, and then start the circles. This is because the arms and the legs are actually ultimately connected in the torso. So and also it has a really big part to play with the movement of the rib cage. And what we want to do is we want to start allowing the thoracic spine to do a lot more of the rotation that often it gets patterned out of us. So our lumbar spine ends up doing quite a lot of the rotation when actually it should be a stable connecting place. Okay, so let's just start to widen out the spirals. You may find that this is easier for you. You may find it's a little bit sticky. If you've got some cracks and stuff like that happening, then it's, as long as it's not painful, then we're all good. So bringing the spirals a bit wider. And then let's come down, so we're working as though the arms come directly out of the shoulder blade. The palm is down, facing the floor, and starts to rotate around, so the palm is facing the ceiling here. And just eye gaze follows the palm as it skims the hip over the shoulder to the ceiling and rotates around, follows round, that's it. Eye gaze goes up and follows the arm. And then switch the other way, so sweeping the palm face up to the ceiling, turning the palm as you come round. And calming around, because the arm actually moves in a spiral motion. It's not a linear moving up and down. All limbs do. If you take quite careful notice of our limbs, our bones spiral in and out depending on which way they move. Okay, and then let's just start to make these circles smaller. Okay, and then come down. Okay, now let's turn onto our hands and knees. So move the cushion away, and let's come onto our quadruped. Now, this might be a familiar exercise, but I'd like to introduce it to you in a way that may be slightly different. So it can also be known as cat-cow. So what I want you to do is I want to bring your knees a little bit further in. So rather than being out here or directly under your hips, I want them to come a little bit further in, because our hip bones and our thigh bones actually start here-ish. So if we have them out a little bit, then we actually end up being slightly out of place anatomically. So bring them a little bit in. Okay. Now I want you to put your attention down to your pelvis. So eye gaze is directly on the floor. And I want you to imagine that you've got a lightsaber coming out of your out of the crown of your head, so out of here, going directly to the wall in front. And then I want you to place your attention into your pelvis. So remember when we were lying on our backs and we were doing the pelvic clock. I want you to slide the pelvis down the back of the thigh bones. So it's as if you were sliding that marble towards your navel. And then slide the pelvis away from the knees. And that allows the spine to come into extension. Another way of looking at it is imagine that you've got a book on your bottom. Okay, and then I want you to slide the book off your bottom down the backs of your thigh bones, and you'll notice as you do that your spine starts to come up into flexion. Eye gaze is slightly down towards more into the hands here. And then again, to come out of that, you want to pull that book up over your bottom and it comes into the small of the back. Eye gaze goes ever so slightly in front, like a foot in front. So none of this sticking out of the head here. We want really, really open in the neck. Also, I just want you to play around and have a look at yourself when you're doing this, because often what happens is that we want to go into flexion, so we press into our hands and we come up into this big hump. Now, that only means that you're coming into flexion in your thoracic spine. Doesn't mean that you're coming into flexion across the whole of the spine. So I want you to just support yourself with your hands and use your pelvis as the motion of the articulation of the spine. As you can see with me, I've become slightly flexed, but actually not that flexed at all. And then when I'm sending my pelvis away from my knees, I'm coming into extension, but you notice that my extension is here and not like that. Because often it can be that it's like really, 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 really flexed here and then really, really extended, but actually it just means that you're bending in your lumbar spine, and that's something that we want to avoid. Okay, so let's do a couple more here. Sending the pelvis down the back of the spine and then sliding the pelvis away from the knees. And then again. So this is something you can really play with. Okay. All right, now come into the extension pattern, and I want you to slowly send your right hand and your left foot away, keeping them connected onto the mat, and then slide back in. Sending the left hand and the right foot away, and slide back in. Readjust yourself. You're in extension, so you can always just poke your bottom up a little bit. And then lengthen the right hand and the left leg away. Now just see if you can lift it, lengthening those hands and the feet in opposite directions. And then softening down. And then again, lengthening the left and the right out, lengthening away. And coming back. And lengthening away. Let's do that. Each side one more time after this. Eye gaze is down on the mat, and the last time. Breathing is easy, and then coming in. Now what I'd like you to do, so I just want you to take the hand that's at the back, so I'm using my right hand, but if it's your left hand, then please do that. And I want you to thread that hand underneath your left hand, your front hand, and just let your body come into a diagonal. Only if this is as far as you can go, then that's totally fine. But just bend the standing arm and just thread the back arm through, allowing a slight rotation to come through. And then soften back up, pressing into the hand. And then taking the front hand, feeding the front hand through underneath the back hand, bending the elbow if you're able to come a little bit closer to the floor. And then coming back up. And then one more time, gently feed the arm through on the diagonal. Eye gaze comes in the direction that you're going. And again on the other side. Breathe. Soften the jaw here as well. And just imagine that you're lengthening from shoulder to hip as you're doing this from the back of your body. And you're spiraling your spine and your vertebra. Final time. Front arm underneath the back arm. Bend the elbow. And just sink back into onto your heels. If you find it hard to connect to your heels, place a cushion so you can kneel onto it. And then just come down into the heels. It may be more gentle for you if you come onto your elbows, but widen your knees so they're width of the mat or longer, just to allow yourself a softening to come down. Bend the elbows, place the forehead on the hands, and just allow the back to soften and open up. This is a really, really nice and gentle opening position. If you need to keep your bottom off the heels, then just build yourself up with cushions underneath and just let your bottom sink into the cushions. Even if you've got 5 cushions, it doesn't matter. Having the connection of the cushions fools the body into allowing itself to open up the tissues. It's a very similar concept as it's the same concept as yin yoga. Okay, and then come up to kneeling. If you're unable to kneel like this, it's also fine. You can sit on a chair to do this, but this is a really great thing. So again, sit on loads of cushions, or just sit on a chair. It's really good to do this in front of a mirror. And again, it really helps the spiraling of your spine from your pelvis up to your thoracic spine and allowing your rib cage to start moving. So placing both of your hands on your thighs. And then what I want you to do is I want you to look at yourself, or look at your, doing in front of the mirror is fantastic. And then sliding your left hand down your left thigh, and I want you to draw your right hand back into your, as if you're putting it into your pocket. But I want your eye gaze to be exactly on you. Okay. And then sliding the left hand back and the right hand forward, bringing the left hand back into the pocket and the right hand towards the knee. And sliding again. It seems a very simple move, but you may notice that it's very easy when you're turning to go like that and think that you're still looking at yourself. When I first started doing it, it happened to me all the time. But what this does, it encourages thoracic movement of the spine, so upper spine. So it gives you the structure and the ability for your lumbar spine to rest, and then also helps with the cervical spine as well, because this is where we want our rotation to happen from, and to keep the weight away from our lumbar spine. Okay. All right, so now just come to standing. So now what I want you to do is just have your feet hip-width distance apart. So the final thing that we're going to do is a bit like a factory reset on your phone. I'm going to stand sideways so you can see my legs. And keeping the feet flat on the floor, I want you to start bouncing. Okay, start bouncing from the backs of the knees. The feet are connected, and then you start shaking. Okay, so you start shaking your body, and the vibrations go up the legs, up the shin bones, up the thigh bones, up to the pelvis, to the sacrum, to the spine, to the rib cage, to the arms. They use this in plyometrics, so it really helps with explosive movement. And what this does, it just creates a vibration in the cells that just allows new energy to come in. So again, allow the shoulders to vibrate, the arms to vibrate, the elbows, the hands, the forearms, the neck, the head. And even eyes and your ears and your hair. Close your eyes and just let yourself enjoy this movement. This is something you can do on a daily basis. And a few seconds more. And then just come to a still point and just notice how your body feels after this, vibrations that you may have because of your cells being jiggled about just now. And then also just notice how your spine is feeling. You may want to actually have a lie down on the mat and just have a sense of where your body is now versus it was when we first started these gentle exercises. So thanks very much for watching, and be well.